when I wake up every morning, when I would wake up, like after that whole, not wanting to go the route of chiropractic, all I thought about, man, was football and these impact that coaches have had on my life. And when I made that decision that what do I want to wake up and do and be excited about every day, it was that 1 year gap out of college where I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I dove head first into it, and it's been a dream ever since. And it's been because I've been fortunate to be around great people. And that's what's led to all this.
Welcome to Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. Each episode pulls back the curtain on the coaching profession, spotlighting voices from every level of the game and offering lessons and insights for your own path. But first, a word from CoachComm.
When the game's on the line, your play call can mean the difference between winning and losing. Don't let poor communication cost you the game. For 35 years, CoachComm has been the trusted leader in coaching communication, delivering solutions with unmatched sound quality, performance, and durability. That's why thousands of coaches in high schools across the country trust CoachComm. You put in the hours to prepare. Make sure your communication delivers when it counts. CoachComm, giving coaches the ultimate competitive edge. Visit CoachComm.com to learn more.
Follow Inside the Headset on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel for exclusive content. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. We drop new episodes each week, so hit that follow button and never miss a moment. Now, let's get inside the headset.
Coach, what's going on, man? How we doing?
We're doing good, man. Right in the middle of these summer workouts, getting our guys right, getting them in shape. Football feels back. So, good deal. Everybody's happy around here. How about you?
Oh man, just recording podcasts. Learning about our guys, and I'm really excited about learning about you and your quick rise and quick and definitely. I know you put in a ton of work to get to the position that you're in, but definitely looking forward to kind of diving into your story. And so let's do that. At what point in time did you know you want to be a part of this great profession?
Man, I was fortunate. You asked me when I knew. At one point in life, I didn't know. I went to school originally at Occidental. Had a wonderful experience all the way growing up with youth sports. But I thought at one point in time I was going to go into the medical profession. I was actually, after college, I was accepted into grad school. Was going to go the route of chiropractor, osteopath. And went as far as to actually visit the school I was accepted to. And on that campus, one of the best visits I ever took. While I was there, I realized, and school's great, I realized this isn't what I want to do with my life. And football and sports in general had always been a huge part of my life growing up. My parents, I was very fortunate. They put me in youth sports when I was 4 and 5 years old. And I've been part of sports ever since then. And I had great youth coaches, guys like Arnie Deal and Tim Johnson and Chris Larson. I mean, I still remember these guys that I had as a 5-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Jerry Allen, Ed Anglesey. And as I continued to get into high school and in college, man, these guys, when I wake up every morning, when I would wake up, like after that whole, not wanting to go the route of chiropractic, all I thought about, man, was football and these impact that coaches have had on my life. And when I made that decision that what do I want to wake up and do and be excited about every day, it was that 1 year gap out of college where I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I dove head first into it, and it's been a dream ever since. And it's been because I've been fortunate to be around great people.
Yeah.
And that's what's led to all this.
That's amazing that it was kind of that late in the game to the point where you almost went down that route and you kind of chased your passion and obviously the beginning of a coaching career is not that fruitful financially, obviously fruitful in other ways in regards to what you can do in a profession, pour into people, be impactful, the same impacts some of those coaches have for you. But real quick, let's talk a little bit about the early stages of your career. Obviously played at Occidental College, 3-time All-Conference, 2011 team MVP. Started. I do have to clarify this. Started at linebacker and tight end.
I did. I did.
At the collegiate level. So no way you're not the team MVP for that matter. I mean, so obviously you had a great playing experience, and leverage that, I guess, to some capacity to become to let that be your first job. So as you were playing, as you go into that visit and you have that epiphany that you want to be in the coaching profession, like what happened next? What allowed for you to be coaching that next semester?
Yeah. So, when I finished up, I took a year at home because, like I said, the plan was to go to grad school. So when I made that decision, this is what I want to do, man, I started reaching out everywhere. Now, what's interesting about my career start at Occidental, our head coach, actually, his final year at Occidental coincided with my senior year. So Dale Weedoff, he was the head coach there 30 years, amazing man, amazing coach. But that whole staff actually, pretty much that whole staff had left when he left. And so the guy, the staff and Coach Doug Simonis at the time, who was now the head coach, he had no relationship with me. And so I reached out, and honestly, Coach, I reached out everywhere. I started writing letters. I'm from the Pacific Northwest up there, that Seattle area.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote like a letter to the Seahawks, like I was going to be some 21-year-old. I was going to be what they needed. And true story, they were so professional. They were so great that the assistant quarterbacks coach at the time called me, and he walked me through his whole path in the career. And turns out that's actually Dave Canales, the head coach at Carolina Panthers. And he took the time to call me, and he was a small school guy, played at Azusa Pacific, and he kind of gave me a path of like, hey man, if this is what you want to do, this is how you got to do it. And he didn't need to do that, but he did. And so long story short, though, I mean, I just hit up anybody and everybody I knew. And as it worked out, though, there was a guy that my best man, my wedding teammate, his name's Kevin May. He was actually a member of the 35 under 35 a couple of years ago. He was at Occidental. They had hired him, and he kind of was my in to get me in front of the head coach. And one thing led to another. And so I was literally on my way down there to get started, and Kevin calls me up and he says, hey, buddy, I actually was fortunate enough to get a job at University of Wyoming. By the time you get down here, I'm headed that way. But we're still, I mean, they still want you here. Everything's all good. And man, that's how I got my foot in the door. Came in and hit the ground running.
That's actually pretty interesting that, I've obviously doing this podcast this long, I see a lot of people play and then go GA or, go start that first job at the place they played at. But it was almost like, this was almost like a brand new job, just in a familiar place in regards to.
It really was.
Yeah, in regards to the people there. And so I also want to ask because, oftentimes I get some messages or calls or emails just with young guys trying to break into the profession, trying to figure out how to get in. The first suggestion I always give them is, hey man, if you play college ball, you go reach out to those staffs, and and you're fortunate enough if you're halfway between, your stay there as a player, you got a different staff, you just got more people to reach out to. So the staff that you played for, as they kind of dispersed and kind of went all over, did you reach out to all those guys and kind of see if they could help you out?
Yeah, I did. And a lot of those guys actually continue to coach. They're all over the place now. At that point in time, they were absolutely, guys that I reached out to. It just, how it is sometimes. And truthfully, I got this job, Coach. It was July when I came down there. So it was kind of late in the cycle. There wasn't a lot of stuff open. But a lot of those guys, I mean, they're key parts of my network now.
Right.
And so actually kind of a small story. One of my connections was one of those guys that was there, was a high school coach as well. and being down there in that Los Angeles area, the proximity of all the high schools and the college programs, I actually was able to coach at high school at the same exact time that I got my first job at college, through those connections. And that turned into, it was like drinking through a fire hose, but it was great experience that I probably couldn't do now with a wife and 3 kids, but being a young single guy just getting started, it was awesome.
Yeah. So you segued right into my next question, and I
Okay.
do want to repeat that because you said that very yeah, I just had two major jobs, right? So you were the DC at Hoover High School there in Cali in 2013, also serving as a linebacker, head strength and conditioning coach at Occidental.
Yep.
And so drinking out of a fire hose is probably an understatement. I can only imagine. But, I had who was it? I can't quite remember, but I had somebody from Cali on not too long ago. And that's not that odd for some of those Cali situations to, you don't have to teach at the high school. So sometimes you have another job. And so there's definitely been a fair share of coaches who have kind of done the dual coaching thing at the high school and college deal. But once again, it's not that many people that have done it. So how did you manage that, especially as a first-time job?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate that Doug Simonis, our head coach at Occidental, we had a morning practice schedule. So we were out there by 6 a.m. And so just the schedules, without me having to be a prima donna or asked to, have any accommodations. I mean, we got the work done with the kids at Occidental in the morning, did practice, and then, gave them a break, brought them back for early afternoon meetings, and were able to handle that stuff. And we were done by 1 or 2. And then I was able to drive 15 minutes down the road, do the meetings with the high school guys right after class was done, then do practice. And so all the stuff where you had to tangibly be in person and be connecting with the kids, the schedules didn't overlap.
Yeah.
In that part on the day-to-day stuff. And then all the breakdowns and everything else that we had to do, I could find windows at night. Now you can imagine I didn't get a ton of sleep and was trying to do the best job I could. And,
right.
Looking back at it, Coach, I wasn't near ready to do that, but I was giving it my best shot. And I was very fortunate, for Coach Matt Anderson at Hoover at the time and Coach Simonis at Occidental to give me that opportunity. And so we only ever had one hiccup. We had a travel game at Occidental where, flight game. So we played the high school game Friday night. I caught a red eye afterwards, met the team the next early morning Saturday for all the meetings pre-game. And then we went out and played a game. And then I flew back with the team Saturday night. And that was how that first season went.
That's impressive because I know for a fact, especially as a coordinator, I would have been calling my Occidental plays for my high school kids, and they were like, "What, coach? What you talking about?" No, that's big time, man. And now I do want to ask this part of it too because, obviously the Occidental situation was very unique, right? Because it was a brand new staff, so you were learning those guys. But on the flip side of it, it was a lot of players that freshman and sophomore. Guys that were on the team as you were a player. And, I don't know much about you in college, but I would assume, you weren't in the professional world yet. So you hung out with them, played video games with them, did stuff on Saturday and Friday nights. How did you put that line in the sand that, hey, look, man, I'm hitting this thing from a much different angle. I'm a coach and, I want to be treated as such.
Yeah, I think that's the toughest thing for young coaches to do because you have those relationships with guys. And I think that's what makes everything so special about football is those relationships in the locker room and who you are as a person. And so, just being candid with you, it was the hardest thing I had to do in that. And it was great from the jump being put in that environment of you've got to be able to hold yourself. You've got to change the way you conduct yourself with these guys. You can be who you are, but you have to set that standard of there is a separation. We aren't, we might be friends because of what we've experienced before, but there is a coach-player relationship, and now we're diving into that part of our relationship with those guys. And most coaches know that easier now when you get jobs and you don't have a previous relationship with guys, because that comes with the territory.
Yeah.
But when you first get started as a GA with guys that you do know, man, that was really hard to navigate that and try and figure that out. What I leaned on actually was the guys that I was coaching high school wise, how I conducted myself with them. Well, these guys aren't any different. I mean, I may know more about them because I've had a relationship with them for longer, but we should operate more or less in the exact same way. So that helped me really, as you say, draw the line in the sand, how to do that.
Now, one of the things, too, I thought was unique was throughout your story, I think you have two opportunities where you're the head strength and conditioning coach. And this is not something that's very unique. I mean, oftentimes I coached at Texas A&M Commerce for a couple years. My second year, I was the head strength and conditioning coach for our football team. And, my undergrad probably fit the description, but I didn't have any of the certifications or any of the, real knowledge that I know some of these really good strength and conditioning coaches have. And obviously you're going down a chiropractor route, at least initially. So you didn't have that certification at that point in time. Or maybe you did. I don't want to speak for you.
My first year at Occidental, I did get CSCS certified.
Okay.
I've actually maintained that.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's why I shouldn't speak for you. Okay. So that's big time that you got it. But as you know, especially in the high school level, somebody's got to run a strength conditioning program, and you're not always going to be fortunate to have a CSCS guy or any of the other certs. And you see it in colleges at times. But just being a young guy running a strength and conditioning program, running a defensive side of the football, running a set of linebackers in that same program. How did you handle the strength and conditioning stuff to make sure you're on top of your game?
Man, that's tough, because a lot of that stuff takes preparation on the front end.
Yeah.
You've got to program that stuff. And when I was young, first getting started, especially, honestly, I had a little bit of a background in my undergrad. I was a kines major, so I knew a little bit. But you're right. Like, I didn't get certified actually until in the middle of that season. I'm relying a lot on what did I do as a player, truthfully. What did I like culturally as a player? And that, and then leaning on our head coach and our staff of what do we want our guys to be culturally like? Because I think that's a huge component of the weight room too.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not just how fast can you run and, how strong are you and can we keep these guys healthy, and all those things are important. But what do you want your guys to be like? And a lot of that is built in the weight room. And so I just relied on, even in high school, we had a great strength conditioning program. Ren Leach was our strength coach back then. And I mean, we were a type program where to be on varsity, you had to bench, squat, clean a certain amount. You had to attend a certain number of summer practices. And so those were things that, I just pulled from that. And then as I did it for more time and I got more experience with the true science part of the things, programs have been adjusted, but when you do program it, the details of that, man, it's a lot of work on the front end to plan out weeks of this is what sets and reps and the, finishers and whatever you do in your program, what all that is.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, what's interesting right now is you're sitting in that seat as a head coach, your first opportunity, and that, obviously this probably couldn't be more different in many ways, but in a lot of ways, man, just the amount of stuff that you had your hands in between strength and conditioning, between having this college program, but having this coordinating spot and, just maintaining these relationships, hopping in the car, going from here to there. I mean, a lot of that, having that experience early on had to be fruitful, as you start picking up more responsibilities in these full-time roles down the road. So that's pretty cool that you got that. Now, Kevin May, I didn't realize you guys had that relationship. He's awesome. Congrats to him on a new gig at Seton Hill. I think he just got promoted there to head coach. And so I'm bringing him up again because I can only assume in 2014, as you take this opportunity at Wyoming, he had some hand in this, right?
Yep. So it ended up being the next July. I had interviewed with the staff in February for a position on the offensive side of the ball. So with all these things that I've been super blessed and fortunate to have my hands in already, I thought, all right, if I could maybe get on the offensive side of the ball, then, I could have some versatility. And unfortunately, I didn't get the position. They hired another great coach for that spot. But now with some more people on that staff, they had a name to a face. So summer rolls around, July, and they have Kevin, kind of through Kevin, they reach out to me and say, hey, if you'd be interested in intern opportunity, we would love to have you. And so I sat there and I was like, man, you know, it's hard to, I mean, it was unpaid, truly intern, unpaid. And I was like, you know what, this is a fantastic opportunity. Coach Bull had just gotten there. I mean, won 3 straight national championships at North Dakota State. And so I was like, man, who better to learn from? And I didn't know Coach Bull at the time. I didn't know those guys. And so I was like, you know what? Money isn't, I'm young. I don't need the money right now. I'm not chasing the money. This would be a once in a lifetime opportunity. So I took it. And I found a way just financially, especially at first, to make it work.
Yeah.
And they were great to me. And, you know, it started out, doing all the things GA does. And then eventually, Coach Steve Stannard and Coach AJ Cooper, especially, those were 2 of the guys I worked with a lot. They ultimately were the guys that eventually, after that first season, got me into a GA role and got me a little bit of money, and then really made things. Then it felt like I hit the lottery, you know, at that point.
Well, you know, what's really cool is as I'm listening to the story and listening to the other stories of the guys kind of in your age range. Just, the connections that y'all have, kind of that lateral networking. You know, all the guys at around the same age, at the same level. AJ Cooper was a part of the 35 under 35 class. I believe he's at Arizona State. If I'm not,
he's at Arizona State.
He's at Arizona State, and it's like you guys have all had some type of connection that's somewhere along this thing, and I think that's pretty cool because I had no idea, to be honest with you. That you guys were connected, and so you walk in as an intern. Come and bust your butt, find a way to figure it out, and then and then ultimately get promoted. But real quick, I do want to ask this question: as you took that job at Wyoming, you had to go into 2 schools, not just 1 school, but go to 2 schools and say, "Hey, look, I got this great opportunity. I'm going to take." Or, you know, how did you navigate that process, especially as a young coach? I think sometimes it can be a little intimidating to kind of have those type of conversations. Although they shouldn't be at times, but sometimes they can be. Yeah.
I didn't struggle too much with it. I think I was always pretty transparent with everybody of, you know, just being ambitious and what my aspirations were.
Yeah.
You know, when I was working, especially with Coach Anderson at Hoover at the high school level, I knew that the college level was, especially after kind of that first season, was where I wanted to be at. Yeah. So there was pretty clear communication there that, you know, hey, there may be a time where I get an opportunity that I'm going to pursue that. And so when it came about, he was great with it. And then at Occidental, you know, it was just one of those deals where, you know, he could see where, you know, Coach Simonis could see where I thought this would potentially take me. And so he was great about it too. And, you know, the conversation wasn't tough. I just think being open and honest and transparent with, you know, everybody on your staff, above you, below you, say, you know, if there is such a thing, you know, all your peers, just be consistent with what your goals are. And I think that you don't leave anybody hanging, you know, and don't create those bad situations and rough exits if they happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that because, you know, as you know, reporting a podcast obviously is for, you know, to serve as kind of a soundboard for young guys so they can hear maybe something that you've dealt with. And I think that's huge, just being transparent, being upfront, you know, and if you're working with good people, they should support you, maybe taking a good job. And so that's important to hear, I believe. And so, you know, let's talk a little bit about the learning, you know, the experience, right? So, obviously you had this very unique experience this first year, which you know, sometimes when you don't know that it's unique, you don't know that it's unique. I'm sure enough people probably told you that it was, but it was a lot, right? So you had a lot on your plate, and then obviously you shift to this graduate assistant role where, I mean, you're cutting up film, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're getting coffee, you're getting recruits from the airport, you know, you're just doing so many different things. How did that first gig prepare you for the second one? And, you know, what were some differences, I guess, between the two?
Yeah. I mean, the first gig, I mean, having those probably two jobs at once. I mean, when I adopted the hours of an intern and a G, and then later a GA,
Yeah.
the hours constraint was very similar because I was working so much, the first time that it didn't feel like, oh wow, this is so much more. And I'll say this about working on Coach Bull's staff. It was wonderful. It's great, super detailed. There's no stone left unturned. And so we spent a lot of time making sure that we're giving our guys every opportunity to win when we were there. And so, as a GA, you're doing all those things that you talk about, Coach. You're picking up where some of the things the full-time guys can't do because they're out on the road recruiting and they're working their tails off too. And so, it's what was different, and this is what's so interesting in this profession is, there's just different leadership styles, and that's what, going from Occidental and how Coach Monos operated to go to Wyoming, how Coach Bull operated, you learn that, like, even though it's all the same sport, there's just totally different ways that things operate within the building. And so I think you have to figure out pretty quickly, okay, what is the important tenets and important principles to these guys?
Right.
And ultimately, as an assistant coach, even if you're way down the totem pole as an intern, your job is to make everything as easy as possible for all those guys, all those full-time guys, that head coach, those coordinators. How can we push the team all in the right direction? And within each staff, sometimes that's different things, just culturally and what, and personality-wise, what the head coach wants. And so, that was an adjustment, seeing how Coach Bull does things and how University of Wyoming operated at first versus how Occidental did, just from a, just a leadership standpoint, just how day-to-day operations.
Absolutely.
But it was all great.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, especially as I'm sitting here talking to a younger head coach in this deal, and sometimes that first adjustment can be pretty unique, right? You take the first job, and I don't know how much success or lack of success that you had there at Occidental College, but sometimes you can say, okay, this is how it is. This is how you coach college football. And then you get that next gig, you're like, what? What? This can be more different. And then you have some success, and then you're like, okay, I'm starting to figure it out. You start picking, and then, if you're able to kind of decipher, hey, what's important? What. And so I'll ask you this question. I don't want to jump too far ahead because this is a little bit more about present, but obviously you continue to have a couple more stops we're going to talk about, but you stop at St. Joseph's College, get to be around another head coach, go to Henderson State, get to be around another head coach at that time before you get named head coach. When you look at your coaching style, and I know sometimes you say coaching style and you're like, I don't know if I could put a definition on what it is, but when you look at it, is it bits and pieces from everything that you've experienced, even from a player, even from those little league guys, or is it somebody you got around? Like how do you ultimately take these experiences and these different head coaches and kind of mesh it into this thing that puts your stamp on it?
Yeah, I think you have to be comfortable in who you are first and foremost. I think you got to be authentic. I've seen some things on people talk about some of these guys have been fortunate to work for like Pete Carroll and Nick Saban, which I don't know either one of them. But it appears on the outside that they have pretty differing personalities. And at least these guys kind of talk about that. If you're a Pete Carroll type personality, it's not going to work for you to be a Nick Saban type guy in the meeting room or on the field. Like, you have to be you. Yeah. And I think people are kids, your peers, your assistant coaches, the guys that work with you every day, they can see if you're being fake. Mm-hmm. And so from a personality standpoint, just off the top, I think you have to be comfortable in your own skin from a leadership, from a coaching standpoint. No, this is who I am. This is how I communicate, this type of person I am. And then from there, man, being around all these great coaches, and make no mistake, the reason that I've been able to have, success, if you want to call it that, I'm the least in all this, Coach. I have the least to do with the success I've had in my career. I've been around good people after good people after good people since youth sports. And so if you look back and you try and take all the good pieces of things that guys did, and maybe some of this isn't just like from a personality standpoint, but who was really organized, or like what did they do that was like an organization trick that, okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And, you know, what about work schedule? Who had the work schedule that maybe kept coaches like, you know, energized and engaged? And you try to take, I mean, at least where I'm sitting right now, I try to think about all those things and smush them together. And probably the most important thing in all this, and like I mentioned at the beginning, man, I wasn't ready for some of these jobs that I had. I was so fortunate to have when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
Make as many mistakes as you possibly can, as fast as you can, and then analyze them and fix them.
Yeah.
Just like a player. You know, you want your players at practice to maybe step wrong or do some things wrong so that you can correct it. So then they, you know, they improve and they don't do the same thing. Coach, that's what I'm trying to do in all this, in this profession right now. I've been so fortunate with all the opportunities. Man, I made so many mistakes as a first-year coach.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still making a bunch of them, but I'm trying to make them, recognize them, and fix them.
Yeah.
And so from all these other coaches, man, I've had so many good guys to learn from, taking bits and pieces of how they run their programs and just doing what I think is best to try and make ours elite, you know, and make the experience great for our kids and our other coaches in this program.
You know, I think that's really interesting. I mean, that's a heck of a way to put it, because that's everywhere else. That's how you get better. All right, you're a baby. You stand up, you try to walk, you fall down on your face 10 times, and the only time you do it, and it's almost your whole life is you fell into success, and all of a sudden you're getting into that seat, and it's almost like you don't have the opportunity to really do that, or you know, you don't have long to do that, I guess. I guess the important part, or the important question, and we'll get back to, you know, heading to St. Joseph and all that stuff. The thing that really stood out to me in what you just said was you fell in and you kind of evaluate, how can I fix this? How do you have those tough conversations with yourself? You know, God dang, man, practice sucked today. What can I do different? You know, dang, we came out flat as hell this game. What can I do different? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, well, I start from this viewpoint, Coach. Everything is the head man. Everything is my fault.
Yeah.
Everything is my fault. And I also try to kind of push this viewpoint a little bit, not in a negative way, but on our guys, because if something is your fault, you have the ability to change it, right? If something is somebody else's fault, well, then you're at the mercy of somebody else. So start with every problem in your life is my fault.
Yeah.
And so one of the first things I do, though, and I'm very fortunate, I've got guys on staff. Coach Wagner has actually been a head coach for many years. So I've got a guy that's, I mean, he's a great sounding board sometimes to ask, like, hey, you know, when you were in this situation, what'd you do? But one of the first things I do, Coach, is if we've got a problem that I see, man, I ask our assistant coach, okay, Lord knows, I mean, I have not been doing this a long time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't have all the answers, and I don't try to pretend like I do.
Right. But
I know when you involve people on your staff and you ask people questions, one, you show them that they're important. Absolutely. And they absolutely are. And if we got some fundamental problem that keeps happening in our program, or it's showing up more than a time or two, okay, what do you all think? We're recognizing this, right? And what do you all think could help?
Yeah.
And so, like, you bring up, like, being flat with, you know, coming out, you know, maybe one game flat. And that happened to us a couple times. A couple of our losses that we had last year, I felt like were a little bit associated with that. Well, one of them, as small as this might seem on the outside, like, we were worried about traffic and we arrived at the game way too early. Mm. Okay? And that's one small piece, but I think that contributed to starting. And that's a small detail. That is not why we lost. That's not overall. Yeah. But I'm saying you analyze every little detail, and so then you mark that down like critical mistake there. We started off on a bad foot right there by being, you know, 3.5 hours, you know, before the game.
Right.
Okay, that's not why we lost. I'm not trying to take anything away from the team that played well and beat us. Mm-hmm. Just saying, like, okay, that's one detail. And then you notice like maybe at practice, okay, we don't have juice on Tuesday. Okay, well, what can we do as coaches to boost that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's change the playlist for music during warm-up. Let's actually like change the whole practice structure a little bit. You know, and you look at what we've done at other places, which is where I kind of fall back on like, okay, what did we do at Wyoming if we were seeing things like this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'd do a thing where we'd start sometimes there with team reps right off the bat, get them going. I mean, that's constantly what I think coaching is problem solving. But it's also like, you know, recognizing, you have to have the ability to recognize that, hey, what we're doing isn't working. Let's play with it until we can get it right.
Yeah. You know, you said something that I think probably resonated more than any podcast I've recorded here in a while is, man, a lot of staffs that I've been on, a lot of teams that I've been on, a lot of staffs that I just come and visit, conversations with guys. I mean, how easy is it to say, man, we just don't got the guys. You know, you sit in that staff meeting rooms, we don't got the guys. And you chalk it up as that, oh, our facilities suck, or we need more financial support. But you really hit the hell. I had a coach that, I think he called it locus of control, but he was talking about basically, man, don't come in here and say our kids suck and shrug your shoulders and walk out, and then that's the reason that you're going to lose the next game as well. You know, it has to come with a solution, and it has to come with a solution that you can do to fix it. And I think that's super powerful from a start. Like you said, that's where it starts, right? Is being able to say, there's a problem. What can I do? You know, it's my fault. What can I do to fix it? And I think when you start like that, then you are able to go look at a football game and say, hey, man, we didn't lose because of that extra 45 minutes where the guy sat in there and just twiddled their thumbs. But, man, that was a part of the ingredient. It was an ingredient in this. And, you know, I don't even think you get to that point if you don't just – if you're just willing to walk in and say, oh, our kids aren't good enough, we need a better left tackle, you know, or, you know, whatever that is. So anyways, man, that's super powerful. I appreciate you kind of peeling the hood back a little bit. Now, you know, after those 2 years there at Wyoming, you get the opportunity in 2016 to be special teams coordinator, defensive line at St. Joseph's College. And where's that located?
Rensselaer, Indiana.
In Indiana. Okay. So you're just moving over the country quite a bit, and you take this opportunity. Just talk a little bit about, I guess, the closing at Wyoming in regards to, you know, your time being up there, and then how you sought this job and how it came about.
Yep. So, I mean, at Wyoming, I was once again so fortunate being around great coaches. Like I said, Steve Standard and AJ Cooper were two that, you know, definitely were two of the biggest influences right away. You know, but John Richardson and Mike Bath were two guys that took me under their wing and did a lot for me. I mean, when I first got there as an intern, Scott Brooks, first job I had, Coach, was watching the field goal block units for other teams and just drawing it up. And my job was to give the O-line coach, Scott Brooks, that on his desk every Sunday. And anyways, all those guys were great. And as it kind of got to a certain point, I felt like, all right, the next step is a full-time job, maybe, you know, and a lot of these guys, I mean, I remember Kurt Mallory reaching out for me. And a lot of those situations I got into, you know, guys were looking for guys that had ran rooms before. And I'd ran a room, you know, but the high school level, I think maybe there was some, you know, I don't know. It didn't feel like I was necessarily getting, I thought it'd be easier to get opportunities. You know, here's me, the guy that wrote a letter to the Seahawks thinking I would get hired, you know, and it was just supposed to happen, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and truthfully, I probably let this play too much into my hand. You know, we came off a rough year that last year at Wyoming. And I thought, you know what, man, I want to just see what the next thing is. And so when I got an opportunity to work for Dan Day at St. Joseph's, it was, you know, I loved his energy. I loved his vision for the program. And he was giving me an opportunity to have a full-time job as a D-line coach. And I thought I was ready and be the special teams coordinator. And so I was like, let's do this thing. Let's just, you know, keep it rolling. And that was just another one where packed up, moved, drove, and let's go.
So you get there, you're special teams coordinator. Obviously, you had to experience coordinating at the high school level in that first year. It was special teams they're all unique and they're all different. They're all tough in their own ways. Special teams are very interesting. You tap into every player on both sides of the ball. You're one of the few coaches besides the head coach that gets to address the full team, I think, every day to a certain extent. And then the organization that goes into special team is actually unbelievable in regards to making sure that you got a 2/3 deep with all these different kids, while also coaching a position and making sure that, the L for my kickoff is going to be ready because he plays a lot of reps, and all those kind of things that you have to balance out. And I did special teams my last year, and it was a challenge and fun and rewarding and all that good stuff. But it was a challenge indeed. How did you approach that? Kind of your first time being a special teams coordinator.
Yeah, it was tough. Exactly what you talk about, where you got all 11.
Yeah,
and that depth chart's constantly changing because, somebody's getting hurt or whatever.
Right.
What I learned there was, and this has become one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned, even as a head coach, is you have to be able to coach your coaches and delegate.
Yes.
So don't try to just coach, like say we're just talking punt. Okay. Yes, you need to know what all 11 are doing, but I can't watch the shield and watch the gun if that's the style of, punt you have.
Right.
I can't, so you have to be able to coach your coaches and trust, like, okay, hey, this is what we're trying to get accomplished with these positions. And then you really have to rely on, in my opinion, what I felt with is like, all right, we got great coaches on our staff that they know their roles within each of these special teams. So we divvy it up, where sure I'm coming up with the overall scheme or maybe a couple of us together, but man, these guys are coaching, their role as hard as they coach their offensive or defensive role. And so it's kind of like the strength coach stuff I said earlier. It comes back to culture. I think you have to make special teams special and important. And it is a game-changing thing. And this, coach, from coordinating it, like you want to find the guys that actually are excited about being on.
Yeah.
So there's more than just a physical evaluation of them, man. When you're doing drills, the guys that are hungry for it, guys that want to make an impact. We won a game that first year, or that year at St. Joseph's because somebody blocked a punt at the end of it. That, in a lot of ways, there's technique. There's a lot that goes into that. But that's an effort play too now.
Yeah,
and being able to keep your eyes open, do the technique right, and take that thing off the foot. And so, yes, Coach, everything you mentioned, man, the navigation, the depth chart, all that stuff is super tough. But making sure that your coaches, the other coaches, feel valuable, they feel important in what their role is on special teams, those kids feel important, and just creating a culture of it where, man, special teams that's the place to be.
Amen.
Not offense, defense, that's the place to be. Like, you need a breather, get a breather on offense or defense. Special teams, you're out there.
Right. You know what I think is interesting? I was talking to another special teams guy here over the last couple of weeks, and I was fortunate when I was special teams coordinator of Paul Nichols. He was a head ball coach, and he was a special teams guy. He made it important for me. He made it important for all those guys, like you talked about delegating, which, oftentimes I found that difficult at other spots, not where I coordinated it, but even myself at times where it's like, hey, Mario, what did the L4 do? I'm like, man, I'm over here talking to my receivers coach. My bad, I didn't see it. And you're like, man, that's important. That's BS on my part. Right. And so now you're sitting in this head seat now, how do you make sure that special teams are important for your program? Because I think the buy-in does have to start at the, start with you as the head ball coach.
Yeah. We try to put starters on it.
Yeah.
We show from the jump that it's guys that play meaningful minutes in other roles. Yeah, we're putting you on there.
Yeah.
We recruit it hard. We have a great returning punter, and our kicker was a senior last year. I'm very excited about the guy that, we're bringing in. We recruit like it's important. And then our guys on our roster that play, we have start safety, start linebackers. Those guys they're gonna play on it. And then we practice it for meaningful minutes every week. we practice the technique of stuff every week, and then we practice the scheme stuff. And I think it is, I mean, if you're sloughing on that and just going through the motions and practice on special teams, you're putting your team at a disadvantage. That's my opinion.
Absolutely. Now, you ultimately end up to kind of where you are now, and you've been here for a while, but the roles and your job description has changed quite a bit over the years. You started in 2017 as a defensive line strength and conditioning coach. And I would love to kind of fast forward to this part. After a quick year, you're promoted to defensive coordinator, which I think says a lot about, was something that you did. Maybe it's not for you to answer this question about why the head coach maybe felt you were, prepared for this role, but how did you have that quick amount of impact, to be at DC?
Well, some of it, Coach, was just purely opportunity. Coach Tony Academy was the defensive coordinator here, and he got a great opportunity to be a high school head coach out in the Dallas area. So he left. And so some of it, truthfully, I said it earlier in this, was I ready for my first jobs? Probably. I know I wasn't then. Mm-hmm. Coach Maxfield really went out on a limb. I think he saw that I worked hard. He saw that I was a team player in terms of trying to do what we, see or fulfill his vision for the program. And he gave me this opportunity with kind of the thought that I would grow into it with kind of the path that I'd taken so far and the effort I'd put into this profession. I think he saw that there'd be a chance that I'd be, I'd figure it out. And I want to make this super clear, though, I was very, very fortunate to be given the opportunity when I was. Yeah. It wasn't a thing of there are guys that grind for a long time for that opportunity. And truthfully, our head coach gave me that opportunity off of in a short period of time, just my effort and my trying to fulfill his vision. I truly believe that. And then once I got the opportunity, man, I've been excited about that and worked as hard as I could to be the best coordinator in the country. Yeah. Truthfully.
Well, I think it's easy for us to look at you now sitting in that head coaching chair, and this is just a part of the story. But if you can rewind back to that conversation where all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to make you the DC." Were you married at that point?
No,
you weren't married at that point. Okay, but what was that small win like for you? Just the excitement within yourself, because that's a big deal, and maybe there's some anxiousness tied into it. But that's a huge win for you, kind of coming from a personal standpoint.
Yeah, no, I was extremely excited because the program that Coach Scott Maxfield built here at the time, I know he had been here about 20 years. That was 7 years ago. He'd been here about 15 years and won a bunch of games. Yeah. He wasn't quite the winningest coach here in history yet, but he did so much. And for him to sit there and say, "Look, I'm going to help teach you. I believe in you." And I'm looking around, I'm like, man, it's not even fair, all the successful people I've been around, that it's going to be 2018. I've been coaching for such a short period of time, and I'm going to be the defensive coordinator at a D2 university that's a perennial top 25 team. Mm-hmm. And, like I said before, man, I've just been so blessed with the opportunities I've been given. But that one was one in particular where I smiled about quite a bit. I was like, all right, man, now you really, really, really got, you got to hone in and lock in. And as hard as you thought you were working when you were working two jobs, you got to elevate it up even more. Yeah. And what a wonderful opportunity I got. And I did smile about that one quite a bit.
Good, man. Well, I do like shining on that, because it's just this profession and everything goes so fast where it's like, oh, you're DC now, let's get to work. And sometimes nobody sees that you do have to stop and smell the roses a little bit and say, man, this is a freaking awesome deal. Regardless of my preparation for it or not, I got to take it and hit the ground running. And what you did, man, you started laying those bricks pretty quick. Within a few years, you make the first playoff appearance since 2015 for Henderson State there. 40 sacks, unbelievable, ton of pressure on the quarterback. Just defense was phenomenal that year. what was your approach to building a successful defensive culture, on that team over those years, especially as you were trying to figure it out yourself a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the culture part of it, I mean, I think defensively, I mean, you've got to get guys that are, I mean, you set your standards of what principles, what you want your defense to look like when people turn on the tape. And to me, I want people to be impressed with the way that our kids pursue the football. Okay. And not to say that that's revolutionary in defensive football. I mean, there's a lot of defensive coaches that'll talk to you about that, but that's what it's got to be. With us, we talk about maximum effort. We talk about takeaways. So when we're playing and we're pursuing the football, when you get there, get the ball out. And so we've been building that culture of, I mean, for us, takeaways are so important that, like, at the end of practice, if we don't get 3 takeaways on the scout team, we've got the way our setup is we've got a massive hill right there outside the practice field. Like, all right, if we got 0 takeaways that day, it's 3 hills. Okay, we get 1, it's 2 hills. Like, the bare minimum is 3 takeaways a day. And you just set a standard, and you just hold the guys to the standard of, this is what we expect to do.
Yeah.
And then, from Wyoming, they did such a great job when I got there of, like, they calculate loafs every day and making sure there's a consequence for loafing. And just, your kids always rise to the standard.
Mm-hmm.
So setting that culture of, we are going to play physical, we're going to play as hard as anybody, and there's a couple things we're going to do really well. We're going to tackle well, we're going to get the ball out. And we're not going to have a million rules. We're not going to have a million, different things that you guys have to remember. Play hard, physical, takeaway-oriented football, man, and you'll be successful. And then the scheme stuff, that's a whole different ball game. But you don't win without successful culture.
Yeah,
you don't. And so you got to set that first, regardless of what your talent level is or what you want to do on offense and defense scheme-wise, special teams.
Well, after establishing, such a defensive presence there at Henderson State in prior to the 24 season, you were named head coach. Obviously, a huge deal for you. You come in, once again, you keep talking about, maybe I wasn't as prepared, but heck, I mean, 8-3 record in the first year season, sure. Most wins, and sometimes you brag about these things. I know some coaches like, man, don't remind me of that. But I gotta brag on you for a little bit, okay? 8-3 record, most for a first year head coach in program history. 11 all conference players. I think that's huge. Obviously, your kids on the field having success. Just coming in and having some quick success, how do you build on it? How do you not get complacent? How do you not say, man, great job, coach? How do you do that?
Yeah, well, we have really talented kids that are really motivated. And so 8-3, that is a solid year. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
Our goal is to win a conference championship. 8-3 doesn't get that done.
Yeah.
And so while you can be, happy about having some success, I promise you in our locker room, our guys didn't finish the season, didn't walk off the field after that, that last game of the year and give each other high fives and say, man, that's a great year. This is just getting started.
Yeah.
And that's really been what the message has been in our recruiting cycle is we're taking this place to where it should be. Okay. We're going to get to that 10 win, that double-digit win threshold. We're going to win a conference championship. And, when you got to speak something into existence and believe it too. And so in our recruiting classes, we've talked about this recruiting class. You guys, especially with the high school kids, you're going to win a conference championship. Now, it doesn't just happen because we say it.
Yeah.
And I understand that everybody in the country probably wants that too, but we're going to do it here because we're going to leave no stone unturned. We're going to do everything culturally right. We're going to do everything physically right. And we've got a bunch of young coaches here that are motivated to do the same thing. So we have a rare scenario here of, while we've been very successful and Coach Maxfield done an excellent job, believe it or not, 8-3 and 9-2, when it's pretty consistent year after year, you're still hungry for more.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of veteran guys on our team. We have a pretty senior laden, especially on offense, that want to take that next step and leave the legacy for the next wave of guys coming in here.
Absolutely,
for sure.
Coach. Well, we'll be cheering you on as you kind of continue to fight that battle, man. We're excited about you kind of been a part of us a little closely, and I do want to kind of end with that. This past year, you were part of our AFCA 35 under 35 class, 2025 class. What was that experience like for you, and why would you encourage others to apply for that?
Man, that was a great experience. You come in and you're surrounded by, guys that have worked their tails off and been around other great coaches and are just so knowledgeable. Even though they're young, there's so much that you can just learn from these guys about their path. And we're having this conversation.
Right.
You can have some of these same conversations with those guys. And it's an awesome network and fraternity to be a part of. But one of the things that just in the program from the jump that's great is they bring in, speakers that teach you, from every avenue how to properly lead. Things like personality tests that help you get, I said it earlier in this, like being your authentic self. Who are you? So you get an idea of all right, this is who I am as a person. This is the best way to lead this type of way. Then the speakers that come in and talk about, their experiences and how they run their programs, it's priceless information. And all those guys are different. They all have different paths.
Yeah.
But there's certainly some themes that overlap with those guys that you can walk, when you walk out the door at the end of those, couple days, you are a more prepared coach. You've now kind of had the opportunity to network with some guys from previous and current members of the program that they're going places. Guys that, one of the things I remember most, Coach Golish, South Florida, he was speaking last year, and somebody asked him a question about how do you make decisions. And one of the things he said was, every decision I make, there's so many different directions you're pulled as a head coach, but every decision I make, it comes down to this: what is best for the kids? Okay. That was phenomenal information to get from somebody, just so succinct. I'll remember that the rest of my coaching career. So if nothing else, which there was a ton I got out of it, if nothing else, what a great philosophy in terms of how to approach day-to-day decision-making, that you're pulled all different directions from, do what's best for the kids.
Absolutely.
And if nothing else, that's going to resonate with me forever. So that program's fantastic. They treat you're around great people, and there's just so much information that you're privy to that you otherwise wouldn't be.
Coach, well, we appreciate you, man. We're excited about having you part of that class and just watch you continue to navigate the profession and help build that Henderson State program into that double-digit team and conference champs and everything and more. So appreciate your hour, man. I know it's tough for a head ball coach to find an hour to spend some time, man. But thanks a ton, man, and we hopefully will see you up in Charlotte. Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir. Coach, been great. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too.
When communication counts, trust the headsets trusted by the best. From high schools to the biggest college programs, CoachComm keeps coaches connected and teams prepared to win. Learn more at CoachComm.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Inside the Headset, presented by CoachComm. If you'd like to learn more about this week's episode, head over to AFCA.com. There, you can access every episode and find corresponding show notes. Remember, you can catch every episode of Inside the Headset presented by CoachComm on wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. While you're there, we love for you to take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Your feedback helps us improve and grow. Keep up with the latest news by following us on social media. Connect with us at Inside the Headset and remember to tag us when you share your favorite episodes. For more updates on all things AFCA, be sure to follow the @WeAreAFCA social media accounts. If you're not a part of the AFCA community yet, visit AFCA.com to join thousands of NFL, college, and high school coaches nationwide and across the globe. Elevate your coaching game with an AFCA membership. You'll gain exclusive access to the annual AFCA convention, magazine, digital library, and AFCA Insider email. Stay up to date with the latest stories and news on the AFCA website, More than just a convention, the AFCA offers continuous education, guidance, networking, and more. Celebrate the past and shape the future with the AFCA. It's about fostering exceptional coaches who create outstanding teams and even better individuals. Invest in your skills and make a lasting impact today by engaging with the AFCA. Your journey starts here.